For words to be reborn. Introduction. To die in order to be reborn. The title may have intrigued you. You are probably wondering what are those 4 words. To tell you the truth, I hesitated for a long time with to die in order to be reborn, and so I began these first lines. So death does not frighten you so much after all. The title certainly resonates with you like a buried truth. You've forgotten to learn how to die. We are always talking about how to live better, how to live more freely and happily, etc. But in reality, behind this desire to live better hides the idea that we need to learn how to die. In 2022, many of us have realized that education is in fact a set of rules that we respect and reproduce from generation to generation in order to participate in the smooth running of the order. We give our essence to beliefs and lifestyles because that's how the majority of people integrate into society, and that's how society integrates us. Of course, bending to these agreements when we are all fundamentally different leads to consequences for each individual. Indeed, we all are different, and accepting the same rules for everyone for the smooth running and organization of society puts aside the importance of respecting individual needs. When I talk about needs, I'm referring to the needs that we have to listen to if we want to feel more in harmony with ourselves. For example, some people need more sleep than others. The majority of people will need to fall asleep before midnight simply because they have a daytime pace, as they generally start work at 8 a.m. So ask a writer whose inspiration often comes more easily at night to get up at 8 a.m. when it's only been 2 hours since he fell asleep is an obstacle towards his essential needs for harmony. Another example. Imagine that the swimming pool of a private residence or hotel closes at 10 p.m. If you come home late from work, just forget about this moment of relaxation, as the artist who wants to relax after a late night inspiration session. This is the way society is, and we are constantly submitted to rules established by people with their own pace of life, obliging us to have the same pace, whatever the consequences. That's why so many people are stressed, burned out and depressed because the pace imposed by society simply does not suit them. And this over-adaptation generates unnecessary stress with serious repercussions on our physical and mental health. High blood pressure, nervousness, fatigue, depression. Stress is an adaptation phenomenon in the body that enables us to react to our environment. If stress is a daily occurrence, symptoms such as muscular and joint pain, headaches, sleep disorders, appetite problems, digestive problems, etc. quickly appear. Emotionally, we are often sensitive and nervous, suffering from crying spells, anxiety, excitement, sadness, feelings of unease, and so on. And on the intellectual level, we have concentration problems and difficulty in taking initiative and making decisions. In addition to the stress generally linked to lack of time, we are forced to eat industrial products that are too often full of additives, highly salty and toxic to our health. A regular consumption of ultra-processed industrial food represents a real danger to our physical and mental health. In addition to obesity and diabetes, scientists warn of the high risk of chronic diseases such as cancer and autoimmune diseases, as well as lowered immune defenses. Furthermore, to relieve stress, many people turn to alcohol and tobacco, exacerbating all the problems listed above. If you are one of those people who have adopted this lifestyle and you're reading this book, then you're probably dying. But good news, this book will accompany you through this unconscious depth, and you will gradually change your direction as you read on. You will come out of your unconsciousness and find the strengths you need to take charge of your life and make the changes necessary for your well-being. To live better, we must first learn to die our old habits, patterns, and beliefs. This process requires patience with ourselves. Recognizing you're not really alive is the first but far from easier step towards your rebirth. That's why the title of this book appealed to you, because deep down you're still curious and want to start your second life, the one that begins when you realize that you only have one. Finally, I decided to call this book Forwards to be Reborn in reference to the Ho'oponopono happiness method. I found that using the word die in the title does not reflect the message I want to get across. Yet I truly believe that we need to die at least once before our last breath to live the rest of our life better. So since the aim of this book is to share with you the different methods that have enabled me to reconnect with life, I finally decided to call it Forwards to be Reborn. It's a way of expressing my gratitude to the Ho'oponopono technique. It's really very effective for me. I continue to apply it on a daily basis, but it's now so embedded in me that it has become natural and automatic. Let me explain the power of the Ho'oponopono method. These 4 words are symbolic of the message I wish to convey through this book. The Ho'oponopono philosophy originated in Hawaii. It enables us to change our way of seeing things, to become aware of the impact of our thoughts on what surrounds us. It's a formula based on the 4 expressions: sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. And it's on these 4 words that the title of the book is inspired. Practicing the Ho'oponopono method in situations where we feel that negative energies related to others are affecting us helps us to adopt a more flexible and optimistic point of view. In this way, we accept the situation and our share of responsibility. Having integrated it into my life, I have felt its benefits over time and now have no doubts about the healing power it has on us. I hope you enjoy reading this book and that it helps you find the inner strength to make the changes you need to realize your full potential on the road to happiness. Don't forget to be patient. Life is short, but it's also long enough to give us time to get started. The earth was not given to us by our parents, it was loaned to us for our children. Lakota proverb. Note: before beginning the various chapters of this book, I'd like to add a clarification following a documentary broadcast at the end of 2022 on Arte, Buddhism, the Law of Silence. In this book, you'll find the teachings and some of the masters who transmit them, which I used to be happy and, as far as I'm concerned, to achieve spiritual awakening. I'd like to make it clear that up to now, I've listened to and applied the words of masters such as the Dalai Lama and others. However, I've always been aware that many of them take advantage of their devotees to perpetrate all kinds of immoral acts. For my evolution in spiritual practice as recommended by the Buddha, I have to do one Vipassana meditation retreat a year. This consists of 10 intensive days of meditation, 10 hours a day, carried out in silence, with certain rules to be respected, such as no eye contact, smoking, drinking alcohol, etc. There are specialized centers for this practice, to which I refer later in the book. I'd like to insist on the fact that I've always been aware that many spiritual masters take advantage of their devotees' devotion to perpetrate all kinds of immoral acts. That's why I've never entered these Vipassana centers for the 5 retreats I've experienced since 2018. I prefer to do them myself alone in a remote place. I'll tell you more about this experience later. I have never participated financially in any donation-based meditation retreat or training that will aim to make people happy, etc. Nor do I consider myself a Buddhist or any other religion, but I do apply the teachings of the Buddha, which have helped me radically in my transformation. I could have followed the 10 commandments, but the idea of behaving like Jesus sounds less joyful in my mind, so I prefer to become a Buddha. The aim of becoming a Buddha is to eliminate suffering from life once and for all, and to retain inner peace, compassion, and love for oneself and others, whatever the external situation. A Buddha, in other words, is an enlightened being who has attained spiritual awakening. Having suffered from bipolarity for many years, it was this spiritual practice that enabled me to eliminate this mental illness from my life. For my part, I listen to and read the words of many spiritual masters and philosophers: Eckhart Tolle, Krishnamurti, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Louise Hay, etc., neuroscientists Joy Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, etc., neuropsychiatrists Christophe André, Boris Cyrulnik, etc. Unfortunately, I'm now going to find it very difficult to receive the teachings of Buddhism transmitted by Matthieu Ricard and the Dalai Lama, since I discovered their involvement in acts of pedophilia. Likewise, listening to anyone who turns out to behave in a way contrary to their teachings, no matter how serious the act, pedophilia, embezzlement, etc., is really complicated for me. I consider that the master must be representative of his teachings, and to see him as credible if he lies, manipulates, steals, etc., is impossible for me. So I give credibility to the teachings and remain very cautious about those who pass them on. It seems that the notoriety of certain people with spiritual and psychological influence can lead to sectarian aberrations, which is why I've decided to be my own teacher-student right from my first steps into spirituality. I don't want to be dependent on anyone for my practice and my spiritual evolution. That's why I offer my devotion to the divine itself and not to the spiritual masters. Even so, I recognize that I need and use the teachings they transmit to gravitate towards the path of happiness. This way, I'm sure I'll never be taken advantage of, manipulated, or deceived. I urge all happiness explorers to do the same. Chapter 1. Sorry. Part 1. Focus your energy. The mind plays a key role in focusing our energy. We need to channel this incessant flow of unconscious thoughts we have throughout the day. Neuroscience and cognitive science, which study the nervous system, talk of 60,000 thoughts a day, which corresponds to about 1 thought a second when we are awake. Joy Dispenza and Bruce Lipton are specialized in brain research and biology. They both inform us about neuroscience and quantum physics, and explains that 90% of our thoughts are unconscious, negative, and repetitive. Imagine all that energy wasted looping around old, mostly negative memories, or imaginary, even mistaken anxieties about the future. They explain the importance of positive emotion on the quantum field, which is a wide field of possibilities. By changing the vibratory level of our lives, we transform our reality, our personality, our emotions, our health, and even our planet. Nerve cells activate together and connect with each other. If we keep having the same thoughts and performing the same actions, our brain circuits become limited. The relationship between body and mind needs to be well mastered if positive energy is to radiate from it. According to studies in epigenetics, neural plasticity, and psychoneuroimmunology, our brains are malleable, and this applies to our genes. Genes are activated or deactivated by signals from their environment. Our thoughts, emotions, and reactions are capable of creating disease, and they're also capable of creating health and life. You've probably already heard of the placebo effect, but certainly not the nocebo effect. The placebo effect refers to healing through positive thinking. Sick people heal after the doctor prescribes them a fake sugar medicine and guarantees them a cure. They're cured because they've convinced their subconscious, which can't tell the difference between reality and fantasy. The nocebo effect is simply the opposite. If a positive thought and belief has the power to heal, then conversely, a negative thought and belief has the power to kill. I have experimented the change of thinking, and the results are without a doubt that I must pass on this information to you. I suffered from bipolar disorders, schizophrenic and behavioral disorders, anorexia, 39 kgs bulimia, and addictions to all kinds of toxic substances, drugs, alcohol, cannabis, tobacco, looped reproduction of dissociation, rape. I managed to transform all these sufferings into light thanks to control of my thoughts and the hitherto untapped power of my subconscious. Of course, you have to be motivated and fed up with suffering. Learning to die in order to live better has enabled me to be reborn. We can die in many different ways, and that's what this book is all about. I want to share with you the techniques that are freely available to us to help us evolve towards a happier life in harmony with who we really are. To know ourselves, we have to die of the false characters we play without even being aware of it. Or in other words, we have to detach ourselves from the masks we wear to rediscover our true self. This book, the fruit of over 20 years research into happiness, brings together the methods I have experimented throughout my life in order to heal myself. It took me more than 20 years to transform my life because I could not find any book at that time that brought together all the useful methods for such a metamorphosis. I had to learn and read a lot on the subject of happiness. These methods are a mixture of different cultures that you can find more easily today in France than when I started on the road to happiness. For my part, it was while traveling the world that these healing treasures fell into my hands. Bringing these different teachings together in a single book is my way of showing my gratitude to all those master thinkers, spiritualists, and scientists who made my transformation possible. Without them, none of this would have been possible, and I would not be who I am today. Recognizing that my individual evolution is an integral part of the evolution of our civilization is the starting point for my introspective work. Be the change you want to see in the world. Gandhi. The person I am today is very different from the person I was and the person I aspire to be. Constantly evolving, I'm constantly changing. Anyone who thinks they've learned everything is already dead. Our past is our present, and our future depends irrevocably on both. We should not talk about failures, but about learning to know ourselves better. I really had to be honest with myself and accept not only myself entirely, but my past, my qualities, and my faults in order to be able to work on my transformation. All emotions are beautiful because they are the expression of our true selves. Anger, lies, jealousy, hatred, resentment, etc. are emotional poisons that we can feel for hours on end every day. We need to observe whether we feel any restlessness deep down so that we can embrace it and free ourselves from it. Awareness of the negative aspects of our personality allows them to evolve. The most important thing is not to focus our attention and energy on the mistakes we've made, but rather on our journey to becoming a better person. Part 2. Learning how to become conscious. Becoming aware of who we are and who we want to become is essential to our evolution towards a happier and more fulfilling life. This evolution is first spiritual as it is existential. At some point in our lives, we need to consider whether the life we're leading is still right for us. In this collective unconscious, the societal system requires us to be more or less the same person throughout our lives. By the age of 18, we need to know what job we want to do, and most of us stick with it until we retire. Once the family wheel has turned, children and a house on credit are often a break on rethinking. Even if we're no longer fulfilled in our job, letting go and changing direction because of all these responsibilities seems complicated. And then the weight of guilt puts such pressure on us that we feel we'd be bad, selfish parents if we decided to jeopardize the smooth running of the family. It's true that this challenge needs to be calculated and organized, but once the step has been taken, few people regret their decision. It's better to take the risk of leaping into the unknown rather than verging on burnout or depression. Work takes up a large part of our lives, so doing something we enjoy and find fulfilling is essential to our well-being. Another solution to feel better at work is to do everything we do with love. So even if the job we're doing is not the most exciting, doing it with love changes our lives. But to do that, we have to be conscious. We have to realize that our energy is negative because our work no longer satisfies us and we've become unpleasant. Then we can change our behavior and add the two ingredients we've been missing to spice up our lives: mindfulness and love. Of course, this does not happen overnight, but intention already changes the condition. By the simple fact of wanting our lives to change and realizing that no matter what's going on outside us, keeping good energy is essential, then our daily lives are transformed. We are the reality in which we live. So to change the reality that determines us, the first major change we need to make is our own. If we haven't yet found a new job, then we need to make our daily life more cheerful while we wait for better working conditions. Gratitude is a good way of restoring our lost positivism and getting up each morning with more zest. By thanking the job we have for paying our rent or mortgage, our children's education, our insurance, etc., we focus our attention on what we have and not on what we don't have. Being aware of how lucky we are to have a job, even if it no longer satisfies us, is the stopgap solution until we find something better. Ruminating and complaining will only make the situation worse. Being positive, on the other hand, will keep us energized enough to consider the steps we need to take to look for a new job. Being aware of what we want and what we no longer want allows us to sort out our mind from this useless and negative mental chatter. We need to be aware of our faculties and abilities in order to realize that the job we're currently doing is not fulfilling our expectations. We're better than that, so we need to find the energy to take the step to look for some changes. Our mind is like a cup of muddy water. The aim of meditation is to clear this water, and the best way to do this is simply to let it rest. Eventually, you'll get clear water. In meditation, we have to allow a certain amount of time for this decanting process. From the outside, it looks pointless as we're sitting idle, but inside there's a lot going on. When the mental hub upsets us, we find ourselves with a clarity of mind that prepares us to face the events of our lives. We're much better able to deal with challenges, obstacles, and decisions. In fact, it doesn't matter what you focus on during meditation. You can be attentive to the fact that your mind is at rest and your concentration is strong, just as you can be attentive to the fact that your concentration is in shreds and your mind is in confusion. Simply maintain this attention and concentration will come. Every thought, every sensation begins in the unconscious part of the mind and only then rises to consciousness. Generally speaking, we only become aware of them after they have been there for some time. In fact, we only become aware of distractions when they have already released their hold on us and are in the process of disappearing. It's at this point that we're struck by the sudden realization that we've been somewhere daydreaming. Daily meditation, Henepola Gunaratana. The book in the extract quoted above guides us towards a simple practice of Buddhism. Why and how to meditate? The aim of meditation is a personal transformation. It cleanses the mind of what we might call psychic irritants, such as covetousness, jealousy, etc., which keep us trapped in emotional bondage. As the practice progresses, life becomes more peaceful instead of a struggle. The author teaches us the most ancient form of meditation, the Vipassana technique, which is based on the deep gaze. It's a truly practical manual for developing our capacities and progressing step by step towards an ideal of happiness and peace. Attention is awareness in the moment. It happens in the here and now. It's the observation of exactly what is happening in the moment. It remains forever in the present, perpetually arising on the uninterrupted crest of passing time. To remember something is to use memory. When we become aware that we're remembering, then we're using attention. If we conceptualize the thing by telling ourselves that we are remembering, then we are using thought. Pure attention consists in noticing things really as they are, without distortion. The way they are is called anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanent, unsatisfactory, and selfless. Attention has the capacity to examine the mechanisms of egoism and understand what it sees. It can penetrate the mystery of suffering and the mechanism of discomfort. It can set us free. However, attention does not react to what it sees. It simply sees and understands. It's the sense of patience. Therefore, what you see, whatever it is, must be accepted, acknowledged, and observed impartially. It's not easy, but it's absolutely necessary. We are ignorant, selfish, greedy, and boastful. We covet and lie. These are the facts. Mindfulness involves seeing these facts and being patient with ourselves, accepting ourselves as we are. This goes against our ideas. We don't want to accept. We want to deny the facts or change them or justify them. But acceptance is the essence of mindfulness. If we want to grow in consciousness, we have to accept everything that attention finds in us, namely fear, boredom, irritation, weakness, anger, thoughts, etc. Whatever it is, it's our own. Whatever it is, that's the way we are. This is reality. What strikes you at first is the incredible intensity of mental activity, nicknamed monkey mind in the Theravada tradition or cascade of souls in the Tibetan tradition. We can turn our past into strengths and our dreams into reality. Some opportunities come along only once. Life is not just about subway, work, sleep. It's also about the people we meet and the things we create. We have to keep on dreaming because life on Earth is only for a short time. We must believe in our dreams and do everything we can to make them come true so that we have nothing to regret when we breathe our last. Our evolution is inseparable from our spiritual evolution. It's important that we ask ourselves certain existential questions like who am I, where I'm going, and with whom. Part 3. Dare to become. Life goes by fast. We're like a grain of sand in the universe. We can't take anything for granted, even less certain. We live in a world of fear, and everything we see on TV triggers paranoia, so people make themselves secure. And right now, buying an apartment or house on credit to accommodate a growing family and being employed on a permanent basis represents security. This is what we call the comfort zone in psychology, happiness vocabulary. It's a psychological state created by a feeling of familiarity and comfort. It encompasses all the habits, beliefs, knowledge, and know-how we've already acquired, and which give us a feeling of self-confidence. The comfort zone is useful in everyday life as it enables us to act automatically without anxiety and to feel at ease in our actions. In fact, it's a perfectly natural operating mechanism that preserves and provides security. But stepping out of your comfort zone is essential for anyone wishing to live a rich and fulfilling life. Moving towards new horizons, breaking with our habits and ways of life is like an inner voyage of self-discovery. Travel is a great solution for those who want to get out of their comfort zone. Traveling allows us to lose ourselves and find our way back to life, to discover who we are, where we've come from, and where we're going. When we stray from the path that leads to happiness, we don't lose ourselves geographically, but inwardly. But this temporary disorientation helps us to refocus. Why do so many people take antidepressants? Why are so many young people lost and wandering along life's path? Why do so many drugs, alcohol, and other loopholes allow people to escape the reality of life? Life is magical, but we have to clear the weeds to realize it. If life is like a book, we sometimes have to turn the page and accept that a chapter we love is coming to an end. Many people have not yet found their way or have strayed from it. We have to be careful not to fall asleep in this haunting routine that is slowly killing us. If you think adventure is dangerous, try routine. It's deadly. Paulo Coelho. We can sometimes find ourselves stuck in our daily routines and wanting to see something different. We want to get out of our routine, develop new skills, discover different areas, and above all, challenge ourselves. But the fear of failure can prevent us from doing so. So really, in my opinion, traveling alone allows us to drastically change our routine while enjoying ourselves. Of course, depending on our personality, traveling alone can be more or less difficult and enjoyable. For example, if you're very shy or paranoid, you'll find it hard to do, and indeed such traits can be a real obstacle. There are a few things you can do on a daily basis to help your brain get used to the unexpected and unforeseen. Change food type, change supermarket, walk around a familiar place and look all the details. Take a different route to work, widen your circle of acquaintances, gain new knowledge by learning a different language, musical instrument, etc. These are examples that help us see simple activities in a new light and not be afraid of a change in routine. We can also set ourselves weekly challenges, such as speaking in a group, doing a task alone and unaccompanied, etc. The aim is to work on our fears and limits, adapting to each new situation. So now you understand why I think traveling alone is the best way to discover different ways of living, thinking, and doing things. When we travel, our emotions are heightened tenfold. Everything moves so fast. It's as if we were spending our lives in a windmill. We experience things more intensely. It's like watching a slideshow. Travel leaves us with lasting memories, and as all good things must come to an end, one day we wake up, and it's as if the experience had only been a dream. The images flash by, and we no longer quite understand what we're doing in a reality so different from the metro work sleep. Generally speaking, travel changes a person. For human beings, it's an infinite source of inspiration in the universe of possibilities. We often find it difficult, if not impossible, to return to the same routine we had before the trip. That's why we need to change, and why it's easier for us to take action. We are able to make the decisions that enable us to make the necessary changes in our lives to make our daily routine more fulfilling. We now dare to break through the barrier of fear because we know that if we've been able to travel alone, then nothing is really impossible. We realize that our greatest limit is ourselves, our mind, and our limiting thoughts. I always try to do what I don't know how to do. That's how I hope to learn to do it. Pablo Picasso. Part 4. Reconnect with nature. When the moon is round, it releases an energy that boosts the cycle of all living things, especially plants. It's incredible to observe life. Plants like us need warmth, love, light, and respect to flourish and grow. Like us, it needs to be cared for, and like us, if it's wild, it knows how to fend for itself and draw on its roots. But like us, it becomes more fragile if humans help it to grow. It's a bit like a helper we don't need. In fact, it's as if we were destroying the adaptability of the living species. We need roots, but above all, we need wings to fly better. The societal system and education in general, parents, school, etc., have conditioned us so much to act according to norms dictated for the smooth running of society that we've become completely disconnected from our deepest nature. We've become robots, automatons, soldiers who say yes. Whether or not we accept the rules that govern our society, we act in accordance with all these protocols. As I mentioned at the start of the book, we live by the pace of those who have governed these rules, but this is far removed from that of nature. Now, with electricity and industry full, we've agreed to cut ourselves off from the Earth cycle. There was a time when the moon and sun gave reason to our days as well as the harvest, but since the industrialization of our society, we now live to the rhythm of our smartphones, frozen meals, and 5G. This ever-increasing race to accelerate progress will contribute to the depletion of non-renewable resources such as water and fossil fuels. At the same time, we're polluting water and destroying soil by extracting minerals in order to use advanced materials to build these ultra-high-performance network devices. This environmental disaster is not to mention the probable health risks associated with magnetic wave emissions. In this craze for ever better connection to the outside world, we are drifting away from our connection with ourselves. This massive destruction of our natural habitat is detrimental to our integration with nature. We don't understand that we need to live in harmony with nature. When the last tree has been cut down, the last fish caught and the last river polluted, then man will realize too late that money can't be eaten. Quote from Chef Sue's Apache Hung Papa Sitting Bull. Some people use traditional plants to reconnect human beings with nature, such as the Mexican San Pedro cactus and Ayahuasca, a plant with hallucinogenic properties used by our Indians, particularly in Peru. Incidentally, in the Quechua language, Ayahuasca means liana of the dead, aya, corpse, dead, deceased, huasca, general term for liana. Those who ingest one of these plants can transpose themselves into a parallel existence and perceive reality in a different way. Shamans use them in rituals and divinatory incantations to reach a state of transience that enables them to perceive the spirits of the body. Ayahuasca can symbolize our rigidities, helping us to see more clearly, to understand our behaviors, to go back to the roots. And sometimes the roots are heavy. We are one, and absorbing these ancestral plants gives us a vision of these truths lost deep within us. We are one with nature. The roots of the trees mingle with our veins, and their gentle breeze melts into our whispers. You never know what effects a drug will have on your mind, and ayahuasca, even though it's a plant, has the effects of a drug. It also depends on many conditions, such as state of fatigue, digestion, etc. Before an ayahuasca ceremony, there are a few rules to be observed, such as not consuming drugs, alcohol, meat, dairy products, etc. It's a really strange experience. It's as if these plants help to release the evil accumulated in the collective unconscious. When a person experiences liberation, they also liberate their mother and grandmothers, as well as other men and women in the universe. These medicinal plants accelerate the process of genetic deprogramming awareness and help begin the work of psychological, traumatic, and karmic cleansing of our civilization. Vomiting thus symbolizes the expulsion of evil, like a disenchantment of the liquid of our past lives. The liquid reveals the golden reflections of the bonfire that burns throughout the ceremony, a true treasure of liberation for mankind. These plants help free the world from the rage and aggression that haunt our streets and neighborhoods. This automatization and materialization of needs, characterized by bulimic consumerism, have dehumanized us from our compassion for the human race and for everything that happens in the world. We need to return to our roots, to become one all together, to become one with the planet, to live in harmony and peace with ourselves without destroying ourselves, but respecting ourselves, others, and the earth. We need to relearn how to cooperate with our natural environment and its inhabitants. If I talk about nature, it's not because I know it, but because I love it. And that's why I love it, because those who love never know who they love, or why they love, or even what it's to love. To love is eternal innocence, but in a system like the one we live in, one of the best disguised dictatorships, it's hard to be in harmony with nature. Consequently, it's hard to be in harmony with oneself. The plastic that invades us in foaming, floating continents, as ocean currents collect it in billions of tons in several areas already identified. Aerial and satellite photos are available on the internet, so take a look if you haven't yet heard of these plastic continents as the seventh continent of plastic. It's described as a huge slab of waste in the northern Pacific Ocean, a third the size of the USA or 6 times the size of France. The image immediately springs to mind of a gigantic compact mass of plastic bags, bottles, nets, and other cans, a veritable trap for numerous marine species, including turtles, which each year, as part of their reproductive history, systematically pass through this current. It's not all our fault, but we are responsible because we turn a blind eye to the impunity of our governments who create these walls of plastic, religion, and values. Part 5. Tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are. Put simply, governments want us to be sick because the pharmaceutical industry is just after the arms industry in terms of state revenue. This was true a few years ago, but now it's the agri-food industry that represents the biggest business. This business hides a huge traffic under the backs of ignorant consumers. We're being sold products that are difficult to control, and the mafia has more control than ever over the food industry. In Italy, we're talking about 25 billion euros a year. The mafia operates at every level of the agro-food chain, from production until transport and from distribution until sale. There are clandestine slaughterhouses, stories of mozzarella bleached with soda, fish refreshed with chemicals, and honey cut with syrup. It's not in the interest of investors of all kinds that we should be healthy in body and mind. Eating industrial food has a detrimental effect on our intellectual performance. In fact, all these ultra-modified foods are produced with refined white flour, which provides us above all empty calories, which means a high calorie intake but no nutrients, as they are rich in added sugar and fats. Our brain is the most important organ in our body, enabling all our organs to function. Maintaining it in optimal conditions through a healthy diet is essential to our well-being. Industrial foods such as soft drinks, potato chips, sweets, ready-made meals, sauces, etc., as well as alcohol, lead to a reduction in brain tissue, which in turn leads to a reduction in brain volume and metabolic changes. The composition of processed foods has a negative effect on the brain and contributes to the development of degenerative diseases. The consequences are many in terms of cognitive decline, notably on long-term memory, learning, and the growth of new neurons. In addition, some of the sweeteners that replace sugar disrupt neurotransmitter production, promoting chemical stress and negative effects on learning and emotions, including greater irritability and susceptibility to depression. In addition to cognitive risk, cerebrovascular risks are also present. Fish with high mercury content, tuna, mackerel, shark, swordfish, also have a detrimental effect on the central nervous system and neurotransmitters, leading to brain damage. The accumulation of these foods contributes to affect memory and learning and increases the risk of diseases such as Alzheimer's and dementia. The substances present in these foods are clearly neurotoxic and permanently damage developing brains. Consuming this type of industrially modified food has a notorious effect on our reactivity, and this is how governments manage to keep us bridled and under control, operational and submissive. We obey the establishment of societal rules that run totally counter to our well-being. It's a mad race against time with ever more powerful means of communication. All this goes against our biological rhythms, since it disconnects us from nature. We have less time for ourselves, we are more stressed, and even our consumption is controlled with the programmed obsolescence of electronic products and expiration dates for food products. In electronics, those responsible for marketing products with programmed obsolescence aim to deliberately shorten their lifespan. Consumers are thus forced to replace equipment shortly after purchase. But obsolescence also takes other forms. The oldest is the aesthetic obsolescence, because when it comes to fashion, beauty, luxury, or elegance, criteria evolve rapidly, and objects and accessories lose their value simply because they are no longer fashionable. It's not easy to differentiate ourselves in our lifestyles with all these rules imposed on us. Tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are can now be replaced by tell me what you consume and I'll tell you who you are. If you even remotely integrate it into the system, it's hard to slip through the cracks unless you live in a cave like a hermit, completely cut off from the world. Living in society without complying with all these constraints is difficult. In the end, no matter how much we argue about it, so many demons are a source of stress. The system in which we live has programmed us to be economically dependent, and money makes humans lose the value of love. Today, very few people work out of love, but out of necessity. So to be able to do what you love in life is a great opportunity. The path to happiness is a vast question. It's something that makes us feel good, but what is that something? Can it be material? Can material comfort make us happy? Isn't it an insatiable race to want more and more, making us perpetually dissatisfied? A perfect dictatorship will have the appearance of a democracy in the form of a prison without walls, in which the prisoners would not even dream of escaping. It would essentially be a system of slavery in which, thanks to consumption and entertainment, the slaves would enjoy their enslavement. Part 6. Love yourself and life will love you. And the teacher asks the pupil, "And what do you want to do in life?" The pupil replies, "I want to be happy." The teacher says, "You haven't understood the meaning of the question." The student says, "You're the one who has not understood the meaning of life." John Lennon. In Buddhism, happiness is compared to a garden that can be cultivated by watering the right seeds. Happiness is within each of us, and it's simply up to us to cultivate it. There is no happiness that does not exist. There is no happiness that is ephemeral. Happiness is something that does not materialize into anything really concrete. Each moment is unique and can be a source of happiness. Happiness is an idea, a state, a concept. We are happiness. Happiness depends on how we see things and on our ability to keep our inner peace, no matter what's going on outside us. We could say that to be happy is to be positive. To be happy is to be a Buddha. A positive person can't be unhappy. Anything can happen around that person and she remains positive, at peace, shining, smiling at life. Happiness is when we live in the present moment, without dwelling on the past and without worrying about the future, just being with what is given to us at this very moment. Between our moments of doubt and uncertainty about life, existential questions often prevent us from living in the moment and savoring every morsel of life without thinking about the past or the future. Where do I come from? Where am I going and with who? There are questions we must ask ourselves at some point in our lives. This makes the quest for the present moment paradoxical. How can we not worry about the future, while at the same time having to question our lives from time to time? As we saw in the previous section, to be part of society is to be driven to consume and to follow this infernal rhythm of an ever faster race towards progress. Materialism took off just after the Second World War, in the midst of a period of reconstruction, turning a profit on consumers by selling them all kinds of inventions to make up for the war trauma they had just suffered was an easy task. Cities were destroyed and so were hearts. Industrialists took advantage of this opportunity to create an addiction among consumers. A materialistic society has been created by agreeing to compensate for their emotional lack and destructuring through the compulsive purchase of useless products instead of psychological therapy. A few years have been enough to create a strong addiction to the consumerism of products of all kinds. As a result, humanity has become completely disconnected from what's essential and has drifted away from the existential purpose of life, to be at peace and in harmony. Consumerism has replaced introspective therapy, and we've forgotten to cultivate our happiness. We no longer have time to smile at life, everything's rushing by, and we've forgotten to nurture the positive seeds within us to make a beautiful garden of love and light blossom. Watering the seeds of compassion, forgiveness, and love within us will enable us to get back on the path to happiness from which we've strayed by following the fast pace of the societal system. If we don't take care to water these seeds, then we'll unwittingly be watering the other seeds, those that are harmful to our mental health and therefore our happiness. These bad seeds are envy, jealousy, anger, resentment, hatred, and so on. All these negative emotions and energies cause stress and spread through us like poison, keeping us away from the path to happiness. To live a balanced, serene, and fulfilled life, we need to practice physical and mental hygiene. Without it, enjoying the simple pleasures that life has to offer is complicated, as we are unable to connect with the present moment. The slightest disturbance is a risk of letting your mind control you. It will steal all your energy and motivation, and you won't be able to keep up those 3 days of sport in a week that you started. You listen to that voice telling you this time it doesn't matter, then this one time will soon replace the other two, and finally you'll give up your new habit. The 3 times a week will disappear into oblivion, and you'll find yourself sitting on your sofa feeling guilty for not having been able to keep up your efforts. You will have identified yourself entirely with your mind. You have to be stronger than it. The only way to defeat it is to observe it, and only mindfulness allows you to do this. You must disidentify yourself from the mental chatter that sabotages your goodwill, your efforts, and controls your actions. You must realize that you're not the voice speaking to you or the thoughts. Call this concept by the term that suits you best. But what's important is that you put distance between yourself and your thoughts. Applying Don Miguel Ruiz the 4 Toltec agreements, and in particular the always do your best agreement in this situation, will enable you to forgive yourself when you let the voice think for you, control you, and sabotage your efforts. I'll go into more detail in part 6 of chapter 4 on the 4 Toltec agreements, so even if you sometimes lose your motivation to practice those 3 days of sport a week, you won't find yourself stopping altogether. So if you decide to lose weight by exercising 3 times a week, you should not worry about whether you feel like it or not. You should just do it. It has to become an obligation in the same way as you force yourself to get up every morning for work. You do it and you don't ask yourself any questions. It takes some time for a new lifestyle to become an automatic integrated habit. If on a rainy day the voice tells you don't go, you're better off eating a nice chocolate cake in front of a movie, chase it away. Don't listen to it. Pack your bag and head off to your new activity, whatever you feel like doing. Make the right choices. For example, you've got a 10,000 euro car, but you don't have the money to go to the gym, the pool, the cinema, or to indulge in any activity that gives you a sense of well-being. In that case, sell your car and buy one for 4,000 euros. With the difference, you will enjoy better your life. Happiness is a choice, but a car is an illusion, an option. Try to free yourself from the superfluous and have only what you really need. You'll feel freer and lighter and less like a slave to your own life. Free yourself from your attachment to external signs of wealth. It's pointless to live in a huge house and use only one room because it's too expensive to heat it all. We've all envied someone at least once in our lives, whether it's their happiness, one of their possessions, or even their physical appearance. Do everything you can to look like that pretty girl with the dream body you saw on the street. Take inspiration from her and start working out, doing yoga and eating better rather than calling her a Barbie. If you're envious of that person who plays an instrument, well, learn to play one yourself. Realizing that we're envious is one step closer to liberation. Jealousy and envy are poisons that run through our entire being. It's our ignorance and unconsciousness that inject this venom into us. It's only by focusing on our attitudes that we can become aware of our harmful reactions to ourselves and others. This self-awareness enables us to transform our worst thoughts into genuine altruistic qualities. Benevolence, compassion, respect, listening, empathy, forgiveness, etc. We must remember that each of our negative character traits has its opposite. In this way, jealousy is transformed into a role model in admiration, anger and impulsiveness into patience, backbiting and judgment into compassion and respect, greed into generosity, and so on. The other day at the swimming pool, I met a gentleman who weighed 162 kilos. On the advice of his doctor, he decided to take up swimming. It's a great sign of self-love, even if it seems a little late. He was motivated by the realization that he had to get his act together, even if he knew it would take time. But in reality, he had done the hard part, which was to get started. He put the intention into it because he wanted to change the course of his life and give himself another goal when he got up in the morning than eating and finding himself fatter and uglier every day. He said stop. In reality, it's never too late. We have to say to ourselves, I'm tired of hurting all over. I'm tired of suffering. I want to love myself and be happy. Sometimes, even if we don't know how to start something, we simply have to begin. Saying stop to everything that hurts us is within our capacity. We just have to decide and stick to it. We have to know what we want from ourselves, what we want to change in ourselves. We have to rebuild our own identity, sometimes even our own body. Change requires patience and consistency. Our present builds our future, but to do this, we absolutely must channel our minds so that we have sufficient energy to keep our willpower active in the present. Making time for ourselves and getting as close to nature as possible is essential to our well-being. Outdoor activities are a good remedy for stress, anxiety, and depression. Fish by the lake, walk in the forest, ride a horse, breathe in the sea air, etc. We are limited to not doing so many things, thinking that we don't know how to do them or that they're not for us. In reality, these moments would bring us moments of relaxation in our lives and allow us to focus our energy on the present moment and not on the problems of everyday life. So learning to bake good cakes or cooking in general is an important activity that many of us have put aside for lack of time and desire. This belief that we don't know how to cook is often false. So many things we believe about ourselves are false and limit us. We need to really explore life and not just resign ourselves to what we already know doing. We have to overcome the fear of failing to do something new in our lives. The little voice inside us, our intuition, knows what's right for us, and we have to learn to hear it, listen to it, and trust it. So if our first attempt does not work out, let's not let our ego make us give up. Persevere a little further. We'll soon discover that we're often better at this new activity than we ever imagined. We're constantly anxious about the future and lamenting the past, preventing us from savoring the power of the present moment, as it's called by Eckhart Tolle, author of the bestsellers The Power of the Present Moment and Yours. The writer explains how important it is for our civilization to return to full awareness of our sensations and thoughts. We cannot be happy if we are not aware that we are prisoners of our thoughts. Without detachment from the mind, represented by the incessant flow of thoughts and images, we are automatons without consciousness. As soon as we think, we are no longer in the present moment. We regain control of our lives once we've detached ourselves from our thoughts and the hold they've previously had over us. As a result, our ability to stay focused in the present moment increases. If we don't realize that we're thinking, then we're constantly living unconsciously and out of control of our lives. As explained at the beginning of the book, Bruce Lipton and Joy Dispenza explain that most of our thoughts are unconscious, repetitive, and negative. Our subconscious is the result of a program installed at an early age. For most of us, this program is largely negative and limiting. This means that to regain control of our lives and our happiness, we need to become aware that we are thinking. When the mind is occupied with cerebral activity, thoughts penetrate the unconscious layer less easily. That's why we need to do what we like to enable our thoughts to be more positive. In spite of this, negative thoughts still pierce our unconscious, and we ruminate throughout the day on mental chatter of which we are unaware. Loving life, therefore, means loving what we do and surrounding ourselves with people who vibrate at our frequencies. In this way, we allow life to love us in return. We smile at life and life smiles back at us because we are in gratitude. This feeling of gratitude can only emerge in the presence of consciousness, the thinker and the object being thanked. Focusing our attention on giving thanks for what we already have and not on what we don't have is to distance ourselves from the illusion of the societal system. This illusion would have us believe that happiness lies in having more. It's up to each of us to regain control of our own lives, to know what we want to do with them and what we want them to be for our children and grandchildren. I wish you endless dreams and the furious desire to make some of them come true. I wish you to love what needs loving and forget what needs forgetting. I wish you passions. I wish you silences. I wish you bird song in the morning and children's laughter. I wish you respect for the differences of others, because the merit and value of each person is often yet to be discovered. I wish you resistance to the stagnation, indifference in the negative virtues of our times. Finally, I wish you never to give up on research and adventure, to life, to love, for life is a magnificent adventure, and no reasonable person should give it up without a hard fight. Above all, I wish you to be yourself, proud of it, and happy, because happiness is our true destiny. Jacques Brel.